Hello everyone, welcome to the MUN IO tax training video. Now this is part of multiple video series and this is the first video where we'll be going through the Canadian tax system just to help the international students understand the basics of Canadian tax system. Just a disclaimer before we begin that this tax training PDF or presentation or the video is only a guide to help international students understand the basics of Canadian tax system, and this will also help them understand in order to file their taxes in a smooth manner. This guide is not to be taken as the only source of information because this is basically oriented towards international students. For any queries, please consult the CRA website or feel free to email me. So going forward, the Canadian tax system is a bit different from the school year because it's based on the calendar year, which is basically January to December, but not the school year. So if you remember, the school year starts here from fall, meaning September, but the tax year is based from January to December. Now, when in 2020 we file taxes for 2019, meaning that we'll be filing the taxes for January 2019 to December 2019, and we'll be including the documents in between that time frame. Now, if you arrived on or before December 31st, 2019, you should file for 2019. Now, if a person was here for 2018, then they should file 2018 first and then 2019. Now, we can submit tax returns through UFile software, which will be part of another video, and sometimes if it doesn't go through the UFile software, we send it by mail, which is Canada Post, and generally that happens for first time filers. So if first time filing as an international student, you may need to mail income tax return to respective tax centers only if the online return doesn't go through. And the system has improved over time, over the years, so most students get the tax return done online. Now, this is most important. When you're filing for the first time, it may take months to process, meaning even if it's your paper of return which you file through your Canada Post or through electronic return, it may take months to process because they are generating a database based on your SIN number. You are a newcomer in Canada, so it takes time for them to develop your file. There are two basic kinds of tax which as an international students we should be aware of. First is income tax, which is paid on income earned such as working income, meaning amount paid based on income level and which is deducted automatically by the employer. So an example here is if you work at any retail store like Walmart or Staples, and if you have your pay stub, in each pay stub you will see the net pay, the gross pay, and you will also see income tax deducted. So this is the income tax which we are talking about currently. So in your pay stub, generally an employer deducts income tax based on your yearly income or an expected yearly income. Second is goods and service tax, which is also known as GST. In NL, currently it is 15%. Now this is something which we pay when we buy anything, meaning if you go to Best Buy and if you buy any electronic item, you will pay 15% tax. Now when we file for income tax, we don't need any document for GST, but we will also calculate GST, meaning that the software will automatically calculate GST, so it should be good enough, but we'll need documents for income tax. Now the rule here is if a student did not pay any income tax, most likely they will not receive any income tax refund, meaning that if you did not work somewhere or if you worked for only few hours and there was no income tax deducted from your pay stub, then you won't receive any refund. But that doesn't mean that you should not file income tax return, and I'll explain why you should file income tax return going forward. Now, most of international students are eligible for GST HST credit, and this is one of the main reasons why international students file the taxes, because this is a quarterly payment which is provided by Government of Canada as well as the provincial government to all tax filers, especially if he or she has no income tax deducted, or if he or she was not working anywhere, and if they fall in low income earner. Generally, most students do fall in low income earner, so most students are eligible for GST HST. Now, in order to claim that, we do not need to keep any receipts. So you don't need to have a bundle of receipts in order to claim GST HST. Now, the other part of tax credit is tax return is tax credits, which is also a good thing for students. It helps to reduce the amount of income tax which you pay to zero depending on what tax credits you collected. Now, for 2019, the basic personal amount is $12,000 and $12,069, and sorry, I mixed up, but that's $12,069. Now, what that means is that any tax deducted till the net pay of $12,069 would be refunded by CRA, meaning that the government has decided that for a person or an individual to function or live in a proper manner, or at least to survive, $12,000 is the minimum required amount. So till the moment you make $12,000 on your pay stub, whatever tax was deducted would be refunded when you file your income tax. Now, if you go above $12,000, that is a different story, and at that time the tuition credits help. That will be explained in a separate video where I will be explaining tuition credits, how they help, and I'll also go in detail regarding basic personal amount. Now, the tuition fee which we pay will be collected as credits known as tuition credits, and in 2019 we cannot claim bus passes. We were able to claim bus passes in previous years, but not now. Now, we can also claim medical expenses in the last 12-month period, meaning January to December, as long as it was not claimed in previous years. Now, just one thing about medical expenses, you can only claim those that was not covered by your insurance, meaning the payment which was paid by yourself or through your own pocket, it was not covered by insurance. And the tax receipts, which are the fundamental basics of income tax return. The examples are T4, T4A, T2202A, which is again now T2202, T5, and there are much more which are needed to file a return. They are issued by end of February generally, and they are issued by employer, educational institution, bank, etc., depending on which slip. Now, we do not need all those slips. This may sound confusing to you, but as we go forward it will become much more clearer. T5 is not very common for students because it is issued by bank when a person makes good interest income on the money in the bank. So it's not the case for most students, so you don't need to worry about it. Now, sometimes if you work in 2 or 3 stores, you will have more T4s, meaning multiple T4, which all students should be careful of. And if you worked at MUN, meaning Memorial University, or if you studied, means you are an international student, you pay tuition fees. So you will find all those documents at MUN self-service, and I'll be posting another video for how to access those documents. Now, who is a resident for tax purposes? Most international students are resident for tax purpose. This is different from immigration status definition. So, meaning that if you're contributing, or if you have paid tuition fees, or if you have stayed here, then you are contributing, or you are a resident for tax purpose, and you should file tax. The only reason who are not included for tax purposes are exchange and visiting scholars, because they are not contributing anything to the Canadian economy. They are not paying tuition fees in most cases because they are exchange and visiting scholars. But again, if they have any questions, they should contact CRA directly. There are forms which can be filled out, and since they are exchange or visiting scholars, their assessment takes a very long process, meaning that it may take months, not 1 month but months. Now, the basics. Why complete a tax return? The first thing is get some or most of your income tax deducted from your paycheck back in the form of refund for Canadian government, meaning that whatever tax was deducted until the basic personal amount, you will get it back. If you have tuition credits, you can use that to get more amount back, but everything depends on one-to-one scenario. Second is you will register to get small credit on some of the sales tax you paid. This is called the GST HST credit, which is quarterly payment from Canadian government. So again, as I mentioned previously, GST HST is a benefit for all international students when they file taxes because it's a quarterly payment, meaning it is sent every 3 months to all of you when you file the taxes in proper manner. And generally GST HST is provided based on the income level. When most students are working, their income is not that high, and so generally they are provided a good amount of money every 4 months. Currently the basic amount approximately is around $79 every 3 months, but this may change depending on which income scale you fall on or what is the criteria during when you're filing the taxes, because this is the case in 2019, but we are not sure what may happen in future. And third is you will begin accumulating tuition credits. Now this may not help you now, but if you remain in Canada after graduation, these tuition credits may significantly reduce the amount of income tax you pay to Canadian government when you start working. Now I'll be making a separate video on how you accumulate tuition credits and how it's useful and how you can utilize it to deduct, to reduce your taxes when you start working full time. Now as an international student, the best option is to carry forward your tuition and educational amounts on the income tax return, and which basically the software does. So whenever you use the software, it automatically determines that you carry forward your income tax, means tuition credits, unless and until if you make good amount of money and if you are paying a lot of taxes, the system will use those credits that specific year to give you the maximum return. Now if you have children and once you have been resident of Canada for 18 months, you can apply for the CCB, meaning Canada Child Benefit. This is a monthly payment from the government for the support of your children, and again requires annual completion of income tax return for both you and your spouse. Now this is again if you have a children and if you have a spouse, and if you have been here for 18 months, then you can apply for Canada Child Benefits. You can find more details on CRA website. You can just Google Canada Child Benefit and you should get the details. Generally, as a rule, if you apply or if you submit your income tax return with the details of your spouse and the dependent, meaning the children, they automatically calculate your CCB. But in any questions or any confusions, it's best to contact CRA and ask for clarifications. Now, the most important thing of this video is what documents do you need to get your taxes done. The first is T4. If you worked in 2019, you will get it from your employer or employers depending on how many places you have worked. The second is T4A. This is if you received a scholarship, fellowship or grant from MUN. Now sometimes students do receive fellowship or grants from external agencies, and in that case you will need to contact that agency for the documentation. They may send it to you directly, they may send it to your supervisor, or they may not send it. So it depends on the institution and their policies, so it's better to check with them. If you have external funding, meaning that pay is not processed through MUN. There will be students who have external funding but the pay comes through MUN, then chances are you will have the amount included in the T4A provided by MUN. Now I'll be going through another video which I'll show you where you can find T4, T4A from MUN self-service. The T5, which is earned interest on your bank account in 2019. So this is generally a case for students. There are multiple ways you can get a T5 issued, but for most students it's generally the interest earned in the bank account. Now it's not applicable to most students because most students don't make that much amount of interest income on the amount in their accounts, so you may not get it. In case if you are eligible to get the T5, the bank will send the form directly to you, and they will also notify you through online banking. So in case if you didn't get any notifications or if you didn't get any post, I think you chances are that he or she may not be getting any T5, so you won't need to worry about that. The fourth one is T2202A, which is the tuition. Now this is the most important form for all students. The reason why I say most important, because this you will be using in order to collect tuition credits when you start working full time to get most benefit out of your income tax return. Now we can also claim health insurance premiums, which we pay every semester, which includes Mansu, GSU and foreign health insurance fees or Green Shield or Guard Me plans. Now this can also be claimed, and again I'll show you where you can find them. But for memorial slips, T4, T4A, tuition fee or insurance premium, we need to check through memorial self-service, which will be a separate video itself. Now other documents that can be added are medical or dental expenses that you actually paid and were not reimbursed, meaning that the insurance did not cover it. We can also add official tax receipts for donations, for example to a church or charity. And we can also add moving expenses, which can be claimed in the sense that if someone had a good income or good T4, because what happens is moving expenses again count as credit for that specific year, reducing the income tax slab. But if you did not work somewhere, or if you did not have a good income, or you are just a student working few hours part-time, then including moving expenses does not make a huge difference. So it depends on person, and we'll leave it up to you. If you want, you can add it. If you don't, it's fine. But remember, whatever you add while filing your income tax return, you need to have proof of the document, because CRA may come back and ask for proof of whatever details you submitted. And as a rule, you are told to have the documents for at least 7 years. So just make sure whatever you add to your income tax return, you have it for 7 years in case CRA questions whatever you added on your income tax return. So that's why just make sure you have all the documents stored correctly. Now for internationalization office at MUN, at Memorial University, we use UFile software. It's a very straightforward and basic software which will be very helpful to finish your income tax returns. You can access it at ufile.ca. Now in case if you don't have your SIN number, then you need to apply for individual tax number. Again, you can Google the individual tax number form and you will get it through CRA website. Now generally this used to happen in previous years when the students were not issued SIN number when they landed, or it took some time for them to get the SIN number, and at that time students were left without SIN number. But in recent years, most students have the SIN number, and for international students the SIN number generally starts with 9. So if you have a SIN number, you don't need to worry about individual tax number or anything on this slide. And if you do not, it's best to contact CRA and ask how to go forward. So for students, UFile is free. Now in case sometimes UFile will ask for a code, then you can enter CFS 1981, which is a special code available through Canadian Federation for students, and this will help you file the income taxes for free. In most cases you won't require it, but in some cases if they ask for it, you can use CFS 1981. Now UFile determines this as according to the income you submit. So what happens is when the income is higher, the UFile will ask you for any payment, meaning any payment for using the software. But for students, when the income is on lower level, or if there is no income, then software automatically determines that you do not need any code because it will be free of charge. Now it's basically students should register for a U-File account, and then they can use the U-File for years to go. So if you file your income tax return through U-File for 2019, you can use the same account to file your income tax return for 2020 and so on. So it's a good way to understand the software and then use it for years to come. Now the general student profile. The first is tuition fee, which all students contribute. I will show an example of the form, and a separate video will show how you can access it. Scholarships, which is T4A, MUN self-service. Insurance premiums, again MUN self-service. Employment is T4, which is physical copy provided by employer, or MUN employees get it through MUN self-service. Again, interest income is T5 from banks, generally provided when the person earns $50 or more in interest. So this is an example of T2202A. Now if you see, the name will be listed on top, which is T2202. There will be a box of name program, and we need the information from this is whether you are a student for part-time, for how many months, and it will be listed right here. And if you are a student full-time, it will be listed here. Amount or eligible tuition fees when you are part-time or full-time will be listed here. So we will be using the details in this boxes when we file for income taxes for your tuition fee. Again, this is T2202A or T2202, and we'll be using this for filing taxes. And again, you can get this through your MUN self-service. This is T4A for students who have scholarships, fellowships, grants from MUN. So when you access it, it will show T4A lists as statement of pension, retirement annuity, and other income. So in T4A, you will see the payer's name as Memorial University. You should see your details in here as social insurance number and your name and residential address, and the scholarship will be listed here. In box it will be listed 105, and the amount will be listed here. Again, you can find more details about this when I do a video of how to file your taxes. T4, which is employment income, this will be provided by your employer directly to you, and if you are an employee at MUN, like a research assistant or teaching assistant, you will find it through MUN self-service. Again, the name of the form will be listed T4. The employer's name would be Memorial University. If you are at MUN, if you are at somewhere else, it will be listed here. Your details will be again here as social insurance number, and your name will be here. Now this form has multiple boxes, and all those boxes have numbers if you see. So there is 14, which is employment income, 16, which is employer's CPP, 17, which is employer's QPP, and so on. So when we file the taxes, we will be using the amount in the box number, and we will match the same in the U-File software. So again, this is the T4. More details will be provided when I go through the U-File software. Now this is T5 interest income. Again, the form is generally listed on top. T5 statement of investment income. Now this won't be the case, or you won't need it. This is only in few students where they earn a lot of interest income, but for most students, I must say 99% students, you won't need this, or you won't have this. And if you have this, again the same scenario like T4, you have boxes with numbers, and we'll use the details in these boxes to match in U-File. Now this is insurance premiums. So this is for graduate student. Just an example. So if you go to your financial summary, you will see graduate student dental insurance, which is $86.99 here. and there is graduate students health insurance, which is 136.99, and this is for each semester. So you can claim for 3 semester a year if you have been a student and if you have paid the insurance. Now this is just an example. If you are an undergrad student, you will have a different fees. If you have an international insurance, that's a different fee, and this charges may be different currently. This is just an example. So these were the forms which we required, in the sense that if you are a student, you will need T2202A. If you have scholarships, T4A, insurance premiums if you want to add them, and then employment, which is T4, provided if you work anywhere else or at MUN, and interest income, T5, if you are eligible, or if you are to be issued one, you will be given from your bank. Now I'll just cover a few quick scenarios just to brainstorm your mind to understand what is to be done if you fall in those scenarios. The first scenario is an international student landed in September 2018. Now he or she is studying masters with funding and also works as a teaching assistant. What document does the student need to file taxes? So when is a student and landed in September 2018, now has funding meaning he or she should have T4A, also works as teaching assistant meaning he or she should have T4. Now, and this is also a student, so they should have T2202A and insurance premiums. So T4, T4A, T2202A and insurance premiums, and they need to file 2018 first and then 2019. You can use U-File software to file previous year taxes as well, so that's an advantage of using U-File. Scenario 2, a student, undergraduate student, landed in 2019 and works at Walmart and Staples. What document does the student need for tax filing? Again, very simple. He or she is a student, so they will have T2202A, which is a tuition form, as well as insurance premiums, and they should have individual T4 from Walmart and Staples. So again, T2202A and insurance premium from MUN, and T4 from Walmart and Staples. Scenario 3, a student has been here for 4 years, since December 31st, 2016, but hasn't filed their taxes. What do we suggest, or what should the student do? They should get all the tax slips and documents and start filing return from 2016, then 2017, 2018 and 2019. The reason is that you need to start at the date or the year of entry, because then CRA can generate your profile accordingly. And first tax return is very vital for all international students, because you are developing your profile for CRA. Now scenario 4, for example, if you are missing T4 and you have changed address, meaning that address is different from the address provided when you got your SIN number, what should a student do? Student should contact the HR department of previous employer to obtain copy of T4. They may have sent it to the previous address on file. Now students are known to change lot of addresses. They stay one semester somewhere else and then another semester somewhere else. So what happens is, if you stayed somewhere else on the 1st June or 1st January and you provided that specific address, but then you moved and you forgot to change the address, the T4 will be sent to the address which was on file. So that's why it's your responsibility to contact the HR and ask for T4s for wherever you have worked, and they are obliged to provide you a copy of T4. Now when filing taxes, you must use the current address. It is not necessary to match the address provided during lending, or the address on your SIN number, or the address on your T4. You need to use the address where you currently reside. Last scenario. Now you are trying to submit the return online, but U5 says it could not submit. What do you do? Now there are a few things which we can do when the software says that the tax return could not submit or the tax return was rejected. And in that case, what we do is we check, first thing is we check that the name, date of birth and SIN are correct. and then we try again. If it fails again, we check the name. Sometimes we need to tweak a little bit for long names, meaning that you don't change your names, but if you have a long name, for example, you have first name and then two names in your middle name and then three names in your last name, then you need to tweak a little bit. Generally, it has been seen that if you use the name in your passport, then it goes through, and if that doesn't happen, then you use your middle name in first name. So if your name is Charlie Alfred Albino Trudeau, then you use Charlie Albino Alfred in your first name and Trudeau in your last name. Now, generally, sometimes you can only just use your first name and last name. You can skip the middle name, so you can use Charlie in first name and Trudeau in last name, and you can skip the Albino Alfred middle name, and then also it goes through. So if you have a longer name, you will need to tweak a little bit. You are allowed 5 attempts, so you can use 2 attempts or 3 attempts to tweak the name little bit and submit. If it doesn't go through, then you will need to print the PDF and send it to Sudbury Tech Center. Now you can Google Sudbury Tech Center and you will get the address, and you can print the PDF and you can send it there. Remember, whenever you print the PDF, there are few pages where it requires a signature, so sign them. So that is all for this presentation. Now I'll be having series of videos which will show where to get the documents from MUN self-service. I will be also having a video on tuition credits and more videos to follow for FAQ as well as how to submit your tax return. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or send an email to Internationalization office. Thank you very much. Again, this presentation is based on details available for 2019 tax year.